Hi, everyone. I'm Susan, and I'm the founder and CEO of Journey. Some of you here might know my co-founder, Leti, who's sitting right here. Hello. So I love to travel, but I never have the time to travel plan. And a few years ago, I went on a trip to Buenos Aires and ended up spending over 10 hours of my vacation trying to figure out what to do on my vacation. And on a night when I was looking for a local authentic steakhouse to go to for dinner, I ended up in a restaurant surrounded by American tourists. And that's just not the culturally immersive experience I was looking for. So despite the innovation that we've seen in this space, all right, I'm just going to talk without slides. So despite the innovation that we've seen in this space, travel planning is still a problem. On average, travelers are spending over 10 to 20 hours visiting over 40 different websites. And when it comes time to keep track of everything they found, they're still relying on manual solutions like Google Docs and Excel spreadsheets. We've all been talking about this beast that is a millennial traveler. Instead of guided tours and must-see attractions, they care about local, authentic experiences. They care about food and wine more than any other segment of traveler. And this is a customer that is craving services that are on demand, hyper-relevant, super personalized, and available at an accessible price point. That's a super tall order for any existing player in this market to be able to tackle. The only thing that really comes close is the luxury travel agent experience. But unless you've got thousands of dollars to spend on travel planning fees, or you're comfortable with super opaque pricing models, you're basically stuck doing it yourself. And in today's world where everyone is super busy, that just doesn't cut it. And that's where Journey comes in. With Journey, we take the best part of the travel agent model, the real human contact, and we combine it with technology to make it easy for you to travel the way you want to. Here's how Journey works. So first, we really get your travel needs. We start by asking you high-level questions about your interests, like, are you into food and beverages? Duh. Are you a museum person or not? Then we dive a little deeper. If you told us you're interested in food and wine, we'd know to ask you questions as specific as, are you into craft beer, artisan coffee? How about world-class cocktails? After that, we pair you with a real person who can have a dialogue with and who can also help you with restaurant reservations, hotel and activity bookings, so that all you need to do is get up and go and enjoy your trip. While you're on your trip, you'll have access to maps, directions, all of the information you need to know about the places you're going to, as well as access to your concierge with just a tap. Best of all, recommendations come from real local experts. We handpick top chefs, sommeliers, fashion folks, and more so that you can trust that you're not missing out on the best things to do in a city. By leveraging technology and automation, we can offer this highly personalized service at the radical price of $15 per day of your trip. And even at that price, we can enjoy margins of over 80%. But despite the fact that we're building this super cool technology platform, at its core, Journey is a hospitality business. And we understand that travel is super complex and highly personal. And because of that, early on, we consciously chose to manually build by hand every single individual itinerary. And we did that so that we would have the confidence to know that we were building the right technology to be able to solve this problem. The goal, however, is not to replace our human concierges with bots, but rather to leverage data science, machine learning, so that we can better incorporate customer feedback to make it even easier for our concierges to pull up the best recommendation for a particular traveler out of the tens of thousands of places that we have in our database. So I'm really glad that Chip gave a sort of MPS 101 earlier so that you guys don't think an 82 is like a B-, because that was never an okay grade in my family. But what this really shows is that this is a service that works, that people want and love and are sharing with their friends. And we even had a traveler who told us early on, hey, I'm canceling my Amex Black Card because you guys did a better job planning Tokyo for me. So we've gathered an incredible team to do this. My co-founder, Leti, here is the ultimate culinary connector. She is a food radio host. She's also founded and launched 3 different food and hospitality startups here in New York. Amy, our technical co-founder, leads what used to be an engineer at Amazon, and she led a team there. And I have experience building and scaling teams of over 120 people at Fab.com, where I was VP of Customer Service and Operations Strategy. And so we have some really exciting partnerships coming down the line. We'd love to talk to those of you who are committed to transforming the travel experience and making it better for everyone. Thank you.
I think I'm there.
Okay.
So typically this would be about an hour meeting if we're thinking of this as a typical pitch meeting, but let's do it in 10 minutes and we'll sort of go rapid fire. So to me, this is a major need which I've had. And in terms of the audience, who here has really struggled with local recommendations as they've been creating itineraries? So that's a lot of you, especially given apathy in the audience. So as we think about this product, which you showed us what it looks like now, what does it look like at scale? 3 years from now, what does the product look like?
Yeah, so even now, and this is something where we thought that we wouldn't start thinking about building machine learning and integrating these types of new technologies into our product for a while now. But we're starting to do it already, 1, because the technology is there, and 2, because we're starting to understand from our data that there are specific profiles of travelers that are emerging. And because of that, at scale, we kind of see this as something where it's a service that becomes a no-brainer for people. It's something that is cost-effective, such that instead of taking 10 to 12 hours that it used to took when we started manually building these itineraries in the beginning, it takes something like closer to 30 minutes per trip. And it's something where we have a database of information that is just far more vast than anything you could possibly hope to amass on your own. And so it just becomes the way anybody plans a trip. And I think one thing we've seen with the advent of the internet is that a lot of things that you used to hand off to people, and I think travel agents are a prime example of that, suddenly it's cheaper and easier for you to do it yourself. And so now we're doing everything ourselves. And I really see the pendulums shifting the other way. And with something like travel planning, especially, to be able to essentially outsource it to somebody who knows better than you, and have it be super transparent, have it be great, have it be tailored to you, and that's really what we see. And I think pricing-wise, also, we see ourselves ideally making this something that is close to free, because essentially at the end of the day, we can become a platform to unite all of these different services. And we're already doing a little bit of that today, where we do earn commissions from hotels. We will never charge restaurants or take money from restaurants to recommend them, because that totally goes against what we do. But again, it's just making it so easy for somebody to just get up and have the trip that they want.
So this seems like something people want. There are a bunch of people trying to build this. This is one of the holy grails in the travel space. How do you stand out from your competition? Yeah, so there's a few people in this space who are doing it. I think Pana and Lola are 2 companies that some of you may have heard of. Journey's approach is very different. While a lot of these startups are starting with the booking angle, and they're saying, hey, how can we make it easier for you to book your flight or for you to book your hotel? The people we've talked to, they still want control over the flight booking, because it's such a complicated decision. You want to make sure you see all the options. You want to make sure that your travel agent looked at all the options. And there's so many tools for you to do that yourself, that we don't see that as the biggest thing to solve. And so for us, we're focusing on the part of the trip that is the most important, which is, what the hell do I do when I get there? You're flying to Paris not because of you want to fly this cool airline, or maybe you want to stay in a really cool hotel, but it's you're flying to Paris because you're looking for that great restaurant, because you saw Netflix's Chef's Table and you want to eat at L'Arpège and meet Alain Passard, right? And those are the types of things that we focus on, because we're starting there, and because we're starting at this part that is the most difficult and thing that people want. We're seeing people come to us for the earlier stages as well. And so customers are saying, like, hey, since you guys know all the cool things to do, now you know me, here's my parameters. I'm going on a honeymoon. What places have the types of things that I like to do? And so we start influencing that earlier booking decision as well. Mm-hmm. So you're working with a consumer as your customer. Consumers are really hard to acquire.
Yep.
What channels do you think will work to acquire your customer?
So I kind of alluded to earlier that we have some cool partnerships coming up. For us, it's a really interesting time in travel because a lot of the owners of the supply, the airlines and the hotels, are kind of getting fed up with the OTA model, and they're saying, why are we paying these guys 27% of our booking, and because of that, they're figuring out how do I, one, own the customer directly myself, and then also how do I, in the case of an airline or in any airline booking site for that matter, how do I maximize my revenue because airline margins are so thin? And so for us, we're going after airline partnerships where we're saying, to this particular airline, like, hey, you can offer Journey as an add-on, where people are selling insurance, right? Like, hey, I'm interested in travel planning services, plan my trip for me. And we can do a rev share with the airline model as well. And it's something that also airlines are trying to do more of, so that they're associated not just with being with this like big hunk of metal that drops you off in your destination, but also being partially responsible for that great travel experience that you had and for positive memories. So I think that's the biggest channel that we're going after for partnerships. And then the other things that we're seeing working really, really well is just really targeted press. And we've done a few different types of it. We've done something like Cool Hunting, where it's a site that will spike traffic for us very temporarily and then drop immediately. Whereas the more meaningful pieces that we've done, where we've engaged Instagram influencers who have audiences of 1.5 million, who are amazing storytellers, who also maintain beautiful travel blogs. We have posts from January that are still generating 10-15% of requests every single week for us. And so that's something where, because we understand that a traveler's first behavior now, right, what do you guys do? You go to Google. You're like, let me Google. Let me maybe cross my fingers to hope I find a travel blog that happens to travel, have content on the places I want to go to with somebody who's similar to me. And so that's where we're saying, hey, here are the types of content that we can go after that is evergreen, that will continue to generate for us.
Great. When we look at travel spend, a majority of travel spend is a business traveler, not a consumer. How do you start to go after the business traveler?
We actually have a number of business travelers today and who have come to us and asked specifically for a tailored business product, because people are traveling, and more travelers are tacking on like an extra day here or there to their trips, and they're saying like, hey, what can I do? Or I have an afternoon free, what can I check out? I have an evening free, where should I go for dinner? And so we're already servicing that business traveler under our current model, and they're paying $15 a day, even if all they want is a dinner plan for them. So I think we will probably roll out a specific product for that, probably subscription-based, where if you're a frequent traveler and you go to Journey cities, then yeah, it totally makes sense. So that was something that we didn't expect. We wanted to go after the leisure market because no one was really building something for the leisure market.
And you talked about the technology that you're building. Can you tell us in more detail what exactly is that intelligence layer, and what does that do to your margins?
So the first part of it is essentially, I kind of alluded to the initial questionnaire that we ask our travelers to create this traveler profile. The other challenge is, how do you take the tens of thousands of places in your database and tag them to match those tags that you're getting up front, right? That's a huge challenge. I mean, things like, hey, does this place take reservations, or when is it open? That's all structured data that exists, and we have external APIs we connect with to get that. But things like ambiance, is this place hipster, right? Is this place really good for kids? And that's where now there's some exciting AI platforms that we can plug into that will analyze the information that we have. And we have a team of writers that write descriptions about these places and essentially pull out, hey, this is a super fancy place. This is a jacket and tie place. This is a hipster place. And then also there are really awesome image analytics where we've plugged into the Instagram API for the places in our database. And we can basically have them analyze and say, oh, like that place has artisan coffee because there's a picture of artisan coffee in that, right? And so building that data layer is the first step of it. And what that enables us to do then is to basically, hey, we've done all of these days of travel for people. Here's day one for this profile traveler, there's these places. And then we can figure out, okay, this is getting really nerdy, but like 0 or 1, did they do this? Did they do this? Did they do this? Did they like it or did they not like it? And so we use that to basically show to the concierge, like, hey, I think this is maybe 90% of what the person wants to do, but what if that person said, oh, but I want to go for a picnic one day instead of going to lunch at a restaurant? Our concierge can take the time to say, all right, great, I'm going to swap in this park and I'm going to swap in this gourmet food shop. And so, that's something where instead of, I'd say, them spending their time like racking their brains and going through the database to figure out what's right, they can spend their time doing those special things. And what it does to our margins is, as I said earlier, like before, it was 10 to 12 hours to build a trip. Now we're at the point where it takes about an hour. And so, we have a great team, and so you can kind of see like what the impact of that is.
Since we're almost at the end of our time, you're the CEO, you have a million jobs. What worries you the most? What keeps you up at night?
Right now, fundraising, because we're in the middle of that process. But I think, and I've managed teams before. And I'm starting to think about now, just with my current team, building the right culture, bringing on the best early people who embody that culture. When I can't be there in the office every single day, how do we champion the kind of environment that we want? So yeah, that's probably the thing I worry about most.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.